And we're live. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the J Area. My name's Jose Ramos Jr., and we had quite the eventful end to Friday Night SmackDown. We knew it was on the horizon. If you're keeping up with the ongoing storyline that is the Bloodline saga, I don't think it was much of a surprise that we knew that the original core members, Sami Zayn, Jey Uso, Jimmy Uso, and of course the OTC over-the-counter Roman Reigns, would return and come back into form. The only one we're missing right now is Paul Heyman, but trust, in due time, he will come back as well. Let's go ahead and start off with the beginning of the show. The Bloodline, as it always has been, the center of the WWE Universe. We're introduced to Jimmy Uso and Roman Reigns. I love you, my tribal chief. You already know. The OTC, the tribal chief. Him and Roman, Jimmy and Roman open up the show to a big ovation. But before Roman can even speak, we have Jey Uso, main event Jey Uso, interrupt with such a raucous ovation from the crowd. I mean, when you really look at it, I know a couple of episodes ago we did talk about the Bloodline and just the story of it all. We all know that Roman Reigns is the main character, but one, I think, could argue that Jey Uso is the one that has benefited the most. He could be the MVP of the Bloodline saga. When it's all said and done, I wouldn't be surprised if Jey Uso wins a world title. Now, whether that's the WWE title or the World Heavyweight title, I do believe that Jey Uso has that capability, has that talent, certainly, that warrants him a championship reign. Longer, of course, than his Intercontinental Championship reign, because that lasted 28 days. But he would interrupt Roman. And obviously the basis of this episode of SmackDown was really trying to get everyone on the same page. Jey Uso has made peace with Jimmy. He's really trying to make peace with Roman. And in doing so, they want to be able to reintroduce an old friend, an old family friend, Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn comes out, and obviously, if you've kept up with the Bloodline saga, you would know there's such a storied history here that goes back over the course of the last 2 years. Sami Zayn, who was left as a comedy act in 2022, WrestleMania 38. Many of you, I'm sure, remember his matchup, his legendary matchup against Johnny Knoxville. That's right, Johnny Knoxville from Jackass fame. They had a great, entertaining matchup, and in reward to the efforts that Sami Zayn and Knoxville had been able to perform, Sami Zayn was slowly integrated into one of the hottest professional wrestling angles of the modern era, maybe even of all time. And in doing so, he was able to endear himself to Roman Reigns, to the Usos. We began to fall in love all over again with Sami Zayn. He was the heart and soul of NXT. And being able to stay true to himself in true comedic fashion and in such a natural tone of a baby face, how could you not want to support Sami Zayn? As all he ever wanted to do was to feel as if he belonged in a family. His closest friend, someone he considered his brother, Kevin Owens, time and time again has betrayed him, has been to the Judas. Although he has the beard, I wouldn't compare him to JC, but has been the Judas to Sami Zayn. So he's looking for that sense of belonging. And he found that in the Bloodline. And over the course of time, of course, Roman Reigns had become more verbal, emotional abuse to his family members. And Sami Zayn was done with that. He didn't want to have any part of that. So naturally, he left. He left, and it was in Montreal, Elimination Chamber, 2023, a month before WrestleMania 39. That's when he would face off against Roman Reigns for the undisputed WWE Championship. Now, albeit it was an unsuccessful attempt at the title, that would only be one bookmark, one chapter in this long, illustrious story of the Bloodline. Sami Zayn would go on to have success as a tag team champion with Kevin Owens. He would have a good run as the Intercontinental Champion after defeating Gunther at WrestleMania 40, but slowly but surely we knew it would always come back to this. Sami Zayn was one of the few individuals that betrayed Roman Reigns. That set in motion for what would happen over the course of the next few months when Jey would betray Roman, where Jimmy had a little shaky moment there with Roman, and it developed this sense of paranoia, this trust issue that Roman would now have to this day. I think it's very important to recognize that Roman Reigns isn't 100% sold on Sami Zayn at this point of the segment. Clearly, he doesn't have that sense of, how would you describe? He wouldn't have like this sense of humility. Sami Zayn said, I know there's still that love there. He even talked about how, Roman, you don't hate me. I think you love me. And that, of course, I thought was a great attempt at trying to get him to pop. I think he got Jimmy and Jay there to crack a little bit. I think you could tell that. And he was trying to get Roman to crack. And I do believe that Sami Zayn is onto something when he says that you do have love for me, because Roman Reigns could have easily had dispatched of Sami Zayn the moment he entered that ring. We've seen him do it in the past where he has no remorse against those who he does not agree with. But being that Sami Zayn was able to talk to him, he did say, I will fight for you guys. Number one, out of respect for Jimmy, or rather for Jey Uso. And he talked about how he had all these great memories with Jimmy, Jay, and even Roman. All he asked for in return was an apology, and I thought that was very telling. That was one of the very telling aspects of this segment. We were able to dive into the psyche of Roman Reigns, what really is in his mind. And he looked at Sami Zayn almost in disgust. Insulting me. You insult the OTC, the tribal chief, and you say you want an apology. And Sami Zayn, of course, I don't think needs to have that apology. Sami Zayn was the one that left Roman. He did what he did on his own accord. He acted on his own intuition. But rather, Sami Zayn tells Roman, no, don't need to apologize to me. You need to apologize to Jay for all that he's done to Jey Uso. Ever since 2020, during the I Quit match / Hell in a Cell match, the double stipulation matchup, the level of torment that he's caused Jay, he wants that for his friend. He is the only one that he's loyal to in this storyline so far. And Roman Reigns, he apologized. He told Jay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I allowed you to waste all of our time with this clown. Now, of course, he didn't say that verbatim, but that's basically the vibe that Roman Reigns had. And this was the cue. Sami said, you know what? I tried. I really did, Jay. I came for you. Your cousin doesn't want to listen to me. I don't need to be here. Quite frankly, Sami Zayn has it made on Monday Night Raw. He's had championship opportunities. He's had a high-profile status on Monday Night Raw. He doesn't need to be here. He's only there for Jay. So naturally, he leaves. And because he leaves, Jay is already looking at Roman like, man, you couldn't even give him this. You couldn't even give him this opportunity to voice his opinion, to voice his frustration, and join the fight. Because for the last couple months, Roman Reigns has been struggling, and that's not, a knock on Roman. It's just a fact of life. Shout out LA Knight. The fact is, Roman Reigns is outnumbered. And when you have the Tongans and Jacob Fatu, who has become the second coming of Umaga, and Solo Sikoa, who's on this power trip and has all the confidence in the world, Roman Reigns needs friends. He needs allies. So we see throughout the course of the night, Jimmy's looking for Solo while Jay's looking for Sami. They want this to work. They need this to work. If they want any ounce of a chance against this new bloodline, they need to get together for one fight. And Roman Reigns needs to understand that. But it's a level of pride that won't allow him. Roman Reigns, from day one, let's go all the way back to 2012 when he debuted with this Shield. A force to be reckoned with alongside Jon Moxley, then known as Dean Ambrose, and of course, Seth Rollins. From there, they would break up, and Roman Reigns, for better or for worse, was pushed to the moon. He was supposed to be the next guy. He was supposed to be Hulk Hogan. He was supposed to be Austin, John Cena. He was supposed to be the face. He has been touted as the top guy, even though he was shoved down the audience's throat. And then when he finally gets that recognition and that acknowledgement in 2020, he gets a taste of success. He holds the world title for a collective of 1,316 days. It is very difficult to come to the realization that you are not at the top anymore. Because if there's anything tougher than getting at the top, it's staying at the top. And once Roman fell, and boy, he fell hard. Because you look at the loss after loss. Started WrestleMania 39. Nearly lost against Cody, but after that, he would lose Jay. He would lose Jimmy for some time. Then at WrestleMania 40, he would lose the title. He would lose his tribe. He would lose the Ulafala. He would lose Paul Heyman. He lost the matchup at Crown Jewel. He was pinned for only the third time in the Tribal Chief era. Roman Reigns has to get over himself. In order to make this work, he needs to make that sacrifice. And like Jay said, treat them as equals. And until they do that, that's when they'll find success. And we're going to jump over to the end of the segment, or the end of the show real quick. Because at the end of the segment, or the end of the show I should say, Solo Sikoa is holding an acknowledgement ceremony for himself. Alongside Jacob Fatu, Tama Tonga, and Tonga Loa. But before any of that can commence, Roman Reigns interrupts, skips the whole intro of his theme song, and just comes straight out. And he issues a challenge to Solo. He says, I want you one-on-one for the Tribal Chief title, for the Ula Fala. And I really enjoyed how... Welcome to the stream. Welcome to the stream, Sam. I really like how Solo has been able to express more emotion. For a lot of the time, he has been kind of trying to mock and imitate Roman Reigns. He's really came off as like a diet Roman Reigns. But in this segment, and in recent segments, he's been able to really express himself. A little bit of humor. He mocks his individuals who are issuing challenges. You saw it with Chris Sabin. You saw it with Roman Reigns. And I like that little bit of flair. Solo Sikoa should be a little bit of arrogant when it comes to these promos. He has the muscle behind him. When you have guys like the Tongans and Jacob Fatu, you tell me you wouldn't be a little bit confident. You wouldn't have a little pep in your step, a little bass in your voice. I would. So he tells Roman, I don't need this. I'm already the Tribal Chief. I don't need to have this matchup. Instead, he says, why don't you find 4 individuals to team up with so you can go to war? And obviously, I mean, come on. It should be no surprise. We're talking War Games. The match beyond. And the big thing that really stood out was the number 4. At first, I thought, well, I heard the number 4, but was a little slip up? Did he mean to say a total of 4? Because that would insinuate that there's 5 on each side. And last time I checked, right now as it stood, was 4 and 4. And Roman Reigns caught on to that. He said, there's 4 of you. Why 5? And Solo does the slow count. There's me. There's Jacob Fatu. There's Tama Tonga. There's Tonga Loa. And then there's Sami Zayn. And Sami Zayn comes out from the back immediately with like a hushed tone from the audience. And I'm caught off guard. I'm not going to lie to you. We knew that there was a little bit of a hint that they could team up based off of their interaction on Monday Night Raw a couple weeks ago. But the thought of Sami Zayn teaming with Solo and joining this new bloodline didn't sit right with me. It didn't feel right, you know? It's like seeing, for example, let's throw out a quick basketball reference here. It's like seeing Klay Thompson in a Dallas Maverick jersey when he should be a Golden State Warrior. It does not sit right with me. So, he goes over to the ring, tries to join Solo Sikoa in the beatdown of Roman Reigns. And again, I have these doubts because I'm like, well, in terms of the narrative, it does make sense. It does make sense, but it's like, it doesn't sit well with me. The boys are back in town. You're damn right they are. Because Sammy would deliver a haluva kick to Solo Sikoa instead. And that really got the crowd going. Whether it was for Roman or not, whether it was for Jey Uso, the fact is, Paul Heyman is pretty... I love it. I love these answers in the chat. Whether it was for the Bloodline or not, Sami Zayn is a member of the Bloodline. He will always be a member of the Bloodline. He was an honorary Us. The crowd could not stop chanting Sami Uso. And so now we have this final shot of Jay raising up the finger, Jimmy joining him, Sami following him, and then finally the OTC himself, all in unison with the finger in the air, acknowledging that this is it. This is the fight that we have been waiting for. I don't know if they're going to do the 5-on-5. I would suspect that it's going to be 4-on-4. The only way you can suggest a 5-on-5 is if The Rock is involved and we have Cody, but that's a whole nother storyline. I don't think we're going to go that route. And I think it's too late to introduce someone like a Hikuleo or Lance Anoa'i, who was reportedly signed with the WWE as well. I think this is the lineup we're going to get. 4 versus 4. And just so we don't overcomplicate it or overbook it, I think it's a safe number. Now, if they want to have someone join like a Paul Heyman in the corner, then I guess you can have, maybe The Rock. Again, it would be very difficult to say that because I don't feel like The Rock would just show up for just a little one-off like that. I mean, we were lucky enough to have him at Bad Blood. But the fact is, it'll be 4-on-4. And that'll more likely be your main event at War Games. I have a safe prediction on who I think will win it, but I won't reveal that. You're going to have to wait for my prediction video when it comes out, usually about the Thursday before the PLE. And like I said, it was a very eventful SmackDown. Obviously, a lot going on to see with the Bloodline. But SmackDown isn't just the Bloodline show. Today's SmackDown was very heavy on tag teams. We had 3 stellar tag team matchups. The only matchup that wasn't a tag team was the opening matchup, which was Bayley defeating Candice LeRae without her good friend, Indy Hartwell, because she was released. And I don't know. Maybe that's why Candice LeRae lost, right? You lose Indy Hartwell, your little second in command, and you're going to lose the matchup. Bayley defeats Candice LeRae. I think, again, we're still edging towards her partnership with Nia Jax. Whether or not that leads to the dissension between Tiffany and Nia, that has yet to be seen. But Candice LeRae, again, and the way they had, finished that matchup was an interesting choice here. Candice LeRae tries to get the upper hand on Bayley by feigning an injury, but Bayley doesn't buy it. She beats Candice 1-2-3 in the middle of the ring. We protect Bayley as one of the better baby faces who has vowed that she wants to get back on her winning ways. And I think, just to jump ahead here, I think she might be in line for that new United States women's title that was announced. Huge announcement, by the way. Huge announcement. What do you guys think about this new title for the women's division? It's the first time ever we're going to have a mid-card title for the women's division. And I think Bayley probably will be one of the front runners to win that championship. I'm hoping it's like in a tournament style because I love a good tournament. The design is exactly the same as LA Knight's title design, albeit it's a white strap, which is what they do for the women. Personally, I love the idea of having a mid-card title. I think we need more mid-card title opportunities for the women's division. Now, whether it's a one title thing where it's traveling across brands like the tag team titles, that's one thing. But if that were the case, I don't think I would have given it the U.S. title name. It's going to be a SmackDown title. I can see Raw designating an Intercontinental Championship for the women on Raw. If they were to do the whole traveling title across all 3 brands, you could have gave it a different title. You could have gave it a different name. I think, personally, what about like a TV title? You look at ECW, they had the ECW Television Championship. It would be something that's cross-promoted throughout all brands, especially as, a TV title. Because let's be honest, how often are we going to see it defended on the PLE? I don't think that often. But hopefully I'm wrong. Like I said, love the idea of the United States Championship. It gives them more opportunity to build up this division. And the way NXT is looking with the women at their disposal, this roster is going to keep getting deeper and deeper. And with WWE ID now working in tandem with the independent developmental system, they're going to have to come up with more titles for all these wrestlers. Championship opportunities will not be short in the WWE. And you talk about opportunities here. Exactly. Charlie talks about it. He says, I'm here for Randy. You talk about championship opportunities. Randy Orton and Kevin Owens have been in the middle of the whole Cody Rhodes saga, right? The problem is when you're friends with Cody Rhodes, you are bound to get caught up in some trouble. Look at what happened with Seth Rollins. Look at what happens with Randy Orton and Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens attacks Randy Orton. And I gotta say, this was like an old school segment. I was a big fan of how they handled this segment. Kevin Owens comes out wearing his brand new t-shirt. Kevin is right. Simple, plain, straight to the point. Will it be a hot seller? Hell no. I don't think people are going to buy that t-shirt. But I think it feeds in to the character that is Kevin Owens. He believes he's in the right. And if you really think about it, he has a valid point. He has a valid point. He thinks Randy Orton betrayed him. You rather side with Cody Rhodes than with me. Now, albeit, it is a little bit delusional. We can't say he's not a little bit delulu, but the point is, Kevin Owens comes out and he attacks Randy Orton, who came out incensed. He was so irate. He was mad at Kevin Owens, rightfully so. I mean, look at how their matchup turned out at Crown Jewel. They didn't even have a matchup. It broke out, no contest. They go to the outside. They go into the crowd. Kevin Owens delivers a good old-fashioned elbow drop onto seemingly Randy Orton's throat, which now thinking about it, maybe that's why Randy Orton sounded a little bit under the weather, because he's selling that throat, right? Kevin Owens then attacks Randy and delivers an old-school pile driver. One of those moves that, in fact, was even referred to by Michael Cole as a maneuver that has been banned for quite some time. You look at over the time, the WWE has been very cautious when it comes to concussions. Obviously, with what happened with the whole Benoit situation, and obviously with CTE developing as a major concern in all aspects of sports, the move the pile driver had been banned. It was shocking enough, when in 2013, I believe it was a February edition of Monday Night Raw, when CM Punk delivered it to John Cena to determine who would be the number one contender for The Rock's WWE title heading into WrestleMania 29. I know, tremendous memory. The point is, they bring it out here, and Randy Orton, knowing his back injuries, which I mean spine, neck, come on, it's like the leg bones connected to the foot bone, good old-fashioned anatomy. It's a devastating maneuver for anyone to take, but for someone like Randy Orton who has that history, you know it's something to be of extra concern about. Randy Orton is out indefinitely, I'm assuming. He had to be stretchered out, delivered into an ambulance. We got to hear the phrase hospital rather than a medical facility, as one Vincent McMahon would like to say. But he's not here no more, so we can say hospital. Randy Orton is out. And it only builds up the tension between the two. It elevates Kevin Owens to like super heel. We knew he was a bad guy. But now it's like Randy Orton's going to come out for blood. Now, if he returns, he will return, but it's a matter of when he's returning, right? Because I believed, and let me know in the comments in the chat if you agree with me, I thought that Kevin Owens would have a title matchup against Cody Rhodes at like Saturday night's main event. I thought that made sense. But with Randy Orton out, will he return by then? Will it be Kevin versus Randy? Or, hey, let's just fantasy book real quick. What if Randy Orton is out for a month? Because Saturday night's main event is taking place December 14th in, I believe it was Long Island, New York, right? So that's about a month. He sells this injury. We have Cody and Kevin build up their matchup. I don't think it'll be for Survivor Series because reports have been saying that Cody's not even advertised for the show. So we advertised the big main event as Cody Rhodes, Kevin Owens, WWE title, and this is where Randy Orton returns. Randy Orton has his little feud with Kevin Owens, maybe leading up to the Royal Rumble. We'll see. And then this will then spiral into his feud, eventual feud with Cody Rhodes. Now, a lot to consider there. I know a lot of moving pieces, but that's just the general outline that I think they will take. Kevin Owens, I think, has been on the run of his career. It's been quite some time since he's had this level of heat. But let's talk about heat. Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa had one of the best rivalries in NXT history. I don't even think it's an argument. I think they had the defining rivalry of that NXT black and gold era. And it looks like we might be heading that way because DIY, although they would defeat Pretty Deadly, it was more of like Tommaso Ciampa had defeated Pretty Deadly because he had single-handedly had disposed of Kit Wilson and Elton Prince. He wants to get on this hot streak to regain the tag titles, showing old tendencies of that psychopath that Ciampa was in NXT when he was consumed with his goal in the protection of Goldie, the NXT championship. Him and Johnny, I don't think, are meant for long in terms of their tag team run. And I'm nervous about it. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm a little nervous about it because I love DIY. I love seeing Ciampa and Gargano together. I think they're fantastic. I think their chemistry is off the charts. Their matchup, hopefully soon, against the Motor City Machine Guns should be a classic. Yes, they already had one, but I want to see it again. And if they break up this tandem, I'm nervous for them because I'm afraid they're going to get lost in the shuffle. Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa, quite frankly, I think are one of the better wrestlers on the roster, but I don't see them as the kind of guys that would be competing against Cody Rhodes for the WWE title. Now, they certainly could be competing against LA Knight, yeah, for the US title. But it's just like that worry. Whenever you break up a tag team, there's always one that does better than the other. And if I'm looking at it from that perspective, I have a feeling that Tommaso Ciampa would be the one to break away. I think he's a better heel than Johnny Gargano. I think Johnny's a better babyface. But I think there's limitations there. And that's a conversation for another day. Because we're going to keep on moving here to the next tag team matchup. It was Jade and Bianca as they would defeat Nia Jax and Tiffany Stratton. Again, another wrinkle in the friendship partnership. Queen and her peasant, I don't know, between Stratton and Nia Jax. Obviously, the tag team champions, they're going to win. Because they currently are in line to have a matchup against Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez. I don't think we're going to try to intermingle those storylines. We want to be able to make these two look strong in preparation for their matchup on Monday Night Raw. But the real story here is the miscommunication between Stratton, Nia Jax, and now Candice LeRae, wife of Johnny Gargano, putting her nose in this business. I think it's fairly obvious that Tiffany Stratton will cash in this briefcase on Nia Jax. I don't think it's a question of who, but rather when. I knew it wasn't going to happen at Crown Jewel. There was just too much going on. I still think it'll be between like the months of December and January. I think that's where we go with it. Because I think Tiffany's going to have that title for WrestleMania 41. And they wouldn't have her cash in at WrestleMania 41 because we just had that with Damian Priest. They could do it. You know, I wouldn't bet on it, but they could do it. Tiffany Stratton has become one of the better acts in the WWE's women's division. Again, if it wasn't for that briefcase, I would put her in contention for the women's US title. But she's locked in this Nia Jax storyline, and as she should. I just don't know how it would work. I don't know how it would work because Nia Jax is a great heel. They tried a babyface run with her in 2018 when she had that feud with Alexa Bliss. And I mean, I don't think it works. Nia Jax is a great heel. But I like Tiffany Stratton as a heel herself. Naturally, one of them has to turn babyface. And I feel like in the case of this story, it's probably going to be Tiffany Stratton. And I don't know if I'm ready for that. But we talk about breaking up tag teams. We talk about DIY breaking up. Jax and Stratton breaking up. Jade and Bianca are not far from it. Those two are going to break up. We already saw hints of it on Monday Night Raw when Liv Morgan made a comment about, Jade and Bianca, about how Bianca believes that she's the fastest, the strongest, the toughest of WWE, but Jade thinks the very same of herself. We're already seeing a little bit of dissension there. Not between the two, but by others trying to create it. And I think over time we are going to see it. I think whenever these two lose the tag titles, which I do predict will be fairly soon. I don't think they're going to hold the titles for long. I do think around the Royal Rumble, this is where we're going to start seeing the two kind of not be on the same page. Whether it's Jade throwing out Bianca or Bianca throwing out Jade, that's where we're going to see it. I think Bianca should be the baby face and Jade should be the heel, just because of Jade's heel work in AEW. But regardless, it would be great for that to build towards... It's not Tiffy time. I think it would be a great opportunity for these two to have a match at WrestleMania. My only question is, who goes over? Because in the natural style of booking for the WWE, you want to put over the new guy, or in this case, new girl. So Jade Cargill would make, the right choice to go over. But Bianca's 4-0 at WrestleMania. And this is a great opportunity to start rebuilding a WrestleMania streak. I'm not saying, first of all, let me preface this. I'm not saying Bianca Belair is going to beat The Undertaker's WrestleMania streak of 21 straight wins. I'm not saying that at all. But you are 4-0. Why not bump it up to 5-0? And if that's the case, maybe they don't have the matchup at WrestleMania 41, but I just think that would be the opportune time to do it. It'd be a great matchup, a big, high-profile matchup. But again, I'm not the one with the book and the pen. I'm just watching the show like all of you. And speaking about watching the show, we'll talk about the main event here. We talked about the Bloodline. We talked about the Women's U.S. title. But before that happened, we had a pretty good tag team matchup between the Motor City Machine Guns, the new tag team champions, against A-Town Down Under, Austin Theory and Grayson Waller. The Motor City Machine Guns have been one of my favorite aspects of Friday Night SmackDown as of late. Seeing those two in the WWE ring is surreal. I talked about it before, how I wasn't a huge fan of Total Nonstop Action, I won't lie to you. But when I did watch it from like 07 to 09, it was when the Motor City Machine Guns were a tag team. And I can remember watching them and being glued to the TV screen, especially during their matches against Generation Me, who were formerly Generation Me, but now they're the Young Bucks, for those who know. I look at them now, and it's just, it's so refreshing to see someone new, someone fresh, and someone who did it the right way. They made a name for themselves across the world, whether it was in Japan, whether it was in TNA, Ring of Honor, and they built themselves up. So now when they come to the WWE, it shouldn't feel as much of a surprise that they're already the tag team champions 3 matches in. Chris Sabin, former world champion, 10-time TNA X Division champion. Alex Shelley, former world champion. Together, they have been the backbone, really the consistent force in TNA. They are one of the top stars that come out of TNA. Obviously, there's a long list of names that were there, but I know for me personally, it's so great to see them. They had a great showing against A-Town Down Under. They would get the victory over. And again, a very common theme in tonight's episode of SmackDown is breakups. The Bloodline had their breakup. We just talked about 3 teams. I'm losing track already on all these breakups. A-Town Down Under is due for a breakup as well. It's been hinted at since the build-up to last year's WrestleMania. And I'm a big fan of a pro wrestling podcast. Hopefully you guys have heard of it as well. Chris Van Vliet's Insight. He has great interviews with a lot of professional wrestlers, whether they're currently working or they were working in the past. And he recently had an interview with Austin Theory, and listening to Austin Theory speak and talk about his passion for the business, his drive for success, I look at him and I think, man, turn him babyface. Because there was a struggle there for a time being when he was a single star and he was treated as McMahon's, his pet project. People really couldn't get behind him. He won a Money in the Bank contract that was ultimately rendered useless because he had cashed in on the U.S. title and lost the matchup. He was unsuccessful in cashing in the Money in the Bank contract. But you know what happened afterwards? He won the U.S. title a couple weeks later. So what was the point of it all? And since then, Austin Theory has been struggling to regain that level of momentum. They've placed him in this tag team with Grayson Waller, which has been a good choice, I will say, because you have 2 really good heels together, entertaining heels, by the way. And it gives him another level of refocus and as a way to kind of revitalize his run in the WWE. But I think it's now time that we break them up. Grayson Waller is a really good heel. I see him as like The Miz, who should not be a babyface. The Miz is a natural heel, just like Grayson Waller. Austin Theory could be a babyface. He has shown tendencies outside of the ring when it comes to interviews or his interactions with children, the Make-A-Wish Foundation. I think he would be a great choice to lead this next wave of, future WWE stars. And he's really young. He's like 27 years old. Like, he has so much time ahead of him to be an impact player, to have a long-lasting legacy in the WWE. And he has the intangibles. I mean, we're talking about mic work, in-ring work, charisma. He has the look. This is the guy. And I compare him to like Randy Orton, when Randy was younger. This is a guy where you're trying to build up a wrestler. You're going to probably create Austin Theory. But I mean, we'll see, right? When that happens, I won't be surprised, but I'll tell you what, I will certainly be happy to see it. A great episode of Friday Night SmackDown here. And a great turnout here when it comes to the post-show reaction. This might be the most lively it has been for quite some time. I mean, we have a lot of comments here coming out into the chat. I'm going to address some of these comments here in the chat real quick. He says, Lucha is life. This, pardon me because the mic's over here. I just finished watching this show, and while still talking wrestling, thank you, Jose. I enjoy your videos. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you so much for joining the chat. I'm still trying to figure out a timing that works for everyone, being that I am on the West Coast. The show doesn't end till 11 o'clock. So as soon as it ends, I try to hop on and deliver my immediate reactions when it comes to the show. And as you know, I have the post-show reactions that I was uploading, in a normal sense of the video. But I thought, well, let's go ahead and upload them live. Let's see what we can get here. Let's see if there's people who are interested in talking about what just happened. I know on the East Coast, our friends, it's a little bit later over there for them. But being that we're here on the West Coast, why not talk about it a little bit longer while we have the chance? Thank you again for, commenting and staying lively on the chat. We can hang out a little bit longer here if you guys want to talk about pro wrestling. What did you guys think about the show? What are some of your favorite storylines going on in the WWE? San Fran 5, I love you, my tribal chief. I love you too. When do you think Randy will be back? I think Randy will be back probably in the lead up to Saturday night's main event. The way they really sold this injury when it came to the pile driver, they really played it up in a way where it reestablishes the significance of the move, the pile driver. You have moves like the DDT, the suplex, the pile driver, where back in the day, those were like devastating maneuvers that would win you a matchup. But obviously over the course of pro wrestling, everything evolves, right? It's like sports. Things evolve, times change. So it becomes commonplace. So the level of significance that they placed on the move itself leads me to believe that Randy's going to be out for quite some time. I'm thinking a month minimum. I think if he doesn't return at Saturday night's main event, maybe on the build-up, but I would be safely guessing, give him about a month. Mid-December, if they want to be bold and say the Royal Rumble, that'll be a hell of a way to put over the pile driver maneuver and get some heat on Kevin Owens, as I'm assuming he's going to resume his rivalry with Cody Rhodes. Great question there by Lucha is Life. Let's see what else we have going on in the chat here real quick. We have some references to what I was talking about, Jay and her peasant. I mean, that's what they're really presenting her as. I mean, maybe peasant's not the right word. First of all, I want to thank Jay Ramos, which is weird saying. I want to say thank you to commenting on the chat. Because she's the queen of the ring. Nia Jax is royalty. Rightfully so. She won a tournament. And Tiffany, who has been by her side, kind of presents herself in that light. Now, of course, it's not fair to call her a peasant, because she is the reigning Money in the Bank winner. She will soon be a world champion. But in the sense of hanging around Nia Jax, I mean, yeah, that's really the way that she kind of looks in that sense. Sanford5 says, bring back the Armageddon pay-per-view. I love that idea. I'm a big fan of when the WWE brings back these, blast from the past themes, whether it's music, whether it's a moment, but specifically when it comes to like the older PLEs / pay-per-views. Armageddon, I think, would be a great choice. I think NXT might be more of an appropriate, setting for that, because they have been very good at, reverting back. Halloween Havoc was a WCW PLE. Heat Wave was an ECW. Great American Bash. There are so many opportunities there for NXT. Armageddon, I think, would be a great choice to bring back, though. And it's simple. It's one of those old school type of professional wrestling gimmick shows where it's like, like the old school 80s where you had the typical promo where it's like, I want to see you on Sunday at Armageddon. Like it has that type of bravado when it comes to a name. The ending of the year, the ending of a rivalry, very similar to like a Bad Blood. Bad Blood, I think, is very similar to Armageddon. In fact, Armageddon was home of one of the biggest, literally biggest Hell in a Cell matchup when it had the 6-man group between Stone Cold, The Rock, Rikishi, Kurt Angle, I believe Stone Cold. Did I say Stone Cold? Well, I know The Undertaker was in it, and I think maybe Triple H. I lost track. After 5, I think it was Triple H was the last guy I'm missing. But great point there by Sanfran5. Bring back Armageddon as a pay-per-view event. I guess for the purpose of that, what was your favorite Armageddon moment? Or rather, Hell in a Cell moment, really, because Hell in a Cell had a couple of showings there, too. 2005. Randy Orton versus The Undertaker had a Hell in a Cell matchup there. I talked about that on my top 5, the 5 count on some of my favorite Hell in a Cell matches. That build-up is etched in my mind. I was 8 years old watching The Undertaker versus Randy Orton's feud in 2005. And just the use of theatrics and lighting and just the spooky aspect of it all was very intriguing because it wasn't like anything else on the show. Around this time when The Undertaker and Randy Orton were feuding and they had the casket match and they had the mannequins pretending to be each other and they had the possession of Josh Matthews where Undertaker would actually take over his body, and it was a whole thing. The whole mirror gimmick. Around that time, we were having storylines where it was like Eddie versus Ray for the custody of Dominic. We had John Cena fighting against whoever Eric Bischoff had in his corner. AEW or WWE, Jose? So this is a great question. I'm going to close the show. Not close the show. I'm going to close my conversation on Randy Orton versus Undertaker real quick. That was a real defining rivalry for me because it solidified my love for the whole silly aspect of pro wrestling. Wrestling is supposed to be silly. It's not serious, right? It's all a show, and that's why we love it. And with that being said, a great question here by For the Thrill, AEW or WWE. So, obviously if you follow the channel and you watch the videos, I cover a lot of WWE. I grew up a fan of the WWE. The WWE has been around for quite some time. AEW is an alternative. If you asked me straight up, just to answer your question, because I hate when people refuse to answer questions, I would say WWE. I would say WWE as the current status of pro wrestling because of their commitment to the long-term storytelling, right? We have storylines like the Bloodline, like Cody Rhodes finishing the story. Those are just a couple to name. And I know AEW has that at times, but they're so heavily focused on in-ring work, which isn't a bad thing. I want to first off and say that. Just because I'm saying WWE doesn't mean I don't like AEW. AEW is the alternative. It's like going out to eat, right? I love pepperoni pizza. Pepperoni pizza is my favorite. You can't beat a classic. It's hard to top a classic. But that doesn't mean I don't love a meat lover's pizza, Every now and then I'm going to treat myself there. I love WWE. I love AEW. But WWE is just right above there. Just right above there. AEW has some of the best wrestlers in the world. But I do think the way they present it could be done a little better. Again, I'm not trying to say I'm going to be a better booker than Tony Khan, but I do think Tony Khan could be a better booker. And I think what he should do is surround himself with more individuals who have different opinions than him. Maybe those who have been in the business. I don't know. Again, this is all speculation. I'm not in the meetings. But there is an opportunity there for Tony Khan to do something different than the WWE. And I think ever since... Hold on, I want to comment on these. WWE/NXT is hot right now. It's true. It's super true. And I think that's in a direct response to AEW. I want to give AEW their flowers because from the years 2019 to 2022, they were on fire. You can argue they were better than the WWE. And so that's what happens when you have competition. You're forcing each other to get better. And that's why I think it's so important for AEW to be such a thing. AEW has better matches. WWE has better storylines. For the thrill. Thanks for answering, fam. Absolutely. Thank you for asking the question. I love having this dialogue because it opens up. I can talk about wrestling all day and night, and that's just what I want to talk about. But when you present questions like that, it makes it more engaging and it makes it more fun for me, and I appreciate that. And I do agree with you. AEW, I think, has more times than not has better matches, especially when it comes to the television product. But WWE has better stories. And I will say that. If you were to just strip it down in terms of in-ring matchups, AEW, I think more times than not will beat WWE. But what WWE has at its advantage is that WWE has storylines that enhance those matchups. You make me care for a random episode of SmackDown where you see Bayley defeats Candice LeRae, right? You have me invested because of what happened with Bayley earlier this year. Winning the title, defeating Damage Control. It's built in. There's that level of devotion. Whereas, let's say on AEW, okay, this past week, we had, Brian Cage and Lance Archer in a tag team matchup, and they were defeating anybody and everybody in their way. Now, don't get me wrong. Brian Cage and Lance Archer are fantastic, but it's like they're gonna squash these guys. How much involvement can I have? How much interest can I have in that? Again, talented, but it's like it's not the same. For the thrill, I actually know you, fam. LOL. Used to work with you before you went Hollywood and got famous. Well, I don't know about Hollywood. I appreciate you saying that you know me, but now it's like I only have your username here. For the thrill. Meet and greet. I wouldn't say Hollywood, but I appreciate that nonetheless. Now you got me thinking who it is. Meet and greet by Jay. I will go ahead and spill the beans there. That's my mom. Everyone say hi to my mom. Love you, mom. No, but in all sincerity, AEW is so important, and I think it's so important that we give them their flowers because there's been a lot of division in professional wrestling. There are certain aspects of the fandom where it's like they want to become so toxic and put down one over the other. JK fam, play some old WWE games. I'm not much of a gamer, you know this. I'm not much of a gamer. Maybe. I'll be open to it. But real quick on toxic fandom. A lot of people, poo-poo on AEW. And there are some aspects where you can. But I think it's important to give them their flowers because they being able to compete with WWE at such an early time in their infancy is so vital to the world of professional wrestling. And because they got better, it forces the WWE to improve. And I think that in itself is great for business. And I think that's why we're seeing so much going on in the world of wrestling. TNA is doing great. AEW is doing pretty good. I think they could be doing better, but they're doing pretty good. WWE has been on fire. And I think the argument can be made the hottest they have been ever. Really. I mean, you look at the engagement on social media, you look at the viewership, you look at the attendance, the overall just response from the audience. You strip away all the numbers and all the money, just the people in the audience. They're so engaged. Signs have become such a big thing again in WWE. I talked with my brother about this a couple of times where it's like, man, the Attitude Era had so many signs that you couldn't see the people because they were so invested, they were so engaged with the product, and we're slowly getting back to that. Now, we might not see as many flashes because they no longer have those kind of cameras. We have all these iPhones and Androids. But I feel like we're slowly getting back to that, that high profile where pro wrestling is just, it's back. It's become mainstream. It's become a part of the culture. I mean, you look at all the celebrities that have been appearing, whether they're athletes, whether they're actors, musicians. I mean, look at Bad Blood. You had guys like Metro Boomin and Travis Scott involved in some capacity. Future had a song for the event itself. It's become mainstream, and it's only going to keep getting bigger with the Netflix deal. I mean, that in itself is huge. That they were able to spend $5 billion to distribute the rights to airing Raw. I was going to say SmackDown, but airing Raw. Big deal. And then be on the lookout for tomorrow's video. I have a video coming out, of course, 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. I don't know what time that would be on the East Coast. But where I talk about how WWE is really taking over the world of wrestling. We had the WWE ID being launched. I'll get into that, of course, in tomorrow's video. I talk about the tour that they're going to be having in the month of March and the lead up to WrestleMania 41, where they're going global. They're going to places like Spain, Belgium, London. I think Austria is even there. Germany. They're going global. It's back to what it once was, and maybe even better, even superseding that. I mean, when was the last time the WWE went on a run like the way it's been? I think you'd have to look back to maybe the year 2000 when WWE was at its peak in the Attitude Era. That was probably the last truly great year that the WWE had. But I mean, yeah, they're doing big numbers here. A lot of engagement here tonight on the post-show reaction to Friday Night SmackDown. Thank you guys for, submitting your questions, your comments. I love this. I do this often for Monday Night Raw as well, around the same time, about 11:15 p.m. here, Arizona time. But yeah, if you guys want to talk about anything else, go ahead and submit something in the chat. Any questions like that. But I enjoy it. I appreciate the opportunity to have this forum and this discussion with you guys and just talking about pro wrestling, because I know for me personally, it has become a huge passion in my life. I've been a fan since 2000. I was 2 years old, and since then it has been this bug that bit me, and I could never just get rid of it. There was times where I wasn't as keen and I wasn't watching it as much, but nonetheless, I always kept up with it, and I never could let it go because it's just a great form of entertainment. It's like a movie. It's like basically in simple, plain terms. I don't have to explain this to you guys because you guys are pro wrestling fans. I'm assuming so. Otherwise, you wouldn't be in the chat right here at this late. You wouldn't be in the chat if you weren't professional wrestling fans. But the best way to put it is it's really like soap opera, but action, but wrestling. And I like a little bit of drama. I love athleticism. That's why I'm a big sports fan. You can tell because I have my books over here in the corner. A couple of basketball books. You can't see them, but I do have a big collection of WWE DVDs because I was very big into collecting them growing up. Shout out to my mom and dad who actually allowed me to purchase all of these DVDs growing up, and before they had gotten rid of those and got the WWE Network and now Peacock. Lucha is life. Thank you again, Jose. This was fun. It was more fun for me. Appreciate you for joining the chat. Hope to see you guys again in the future. Like I said, Monday Night Raw and Friday Night SmackDown are where I do my post-show reactions. Obviously, if there's any PLEs or pay-per-views, I try to do those as well. But again, before they had the network and Peacock, you had to buy the DVDs. You had to rent the DVDs. And so I have a good amount of them. In fact, I think I have one right here. Just a little show and tell here while we wrap up a little bit. This was the very first DVD I had ever purchased. Not only in like the concept of professional wrestling, but just in general. It was August of 2005. WrestleMania 21 aired April 3rd, 2005, but I bought it in August. I'll never forget it. You can kind of see it's a little worn out, obviously, being that it's nearly 20 years old. But that was the very first DVD I had ever bought. And I try to take care of it, but it's 20 years old. That pay-per-view was so instrumental in my fandom of professional wrestling. For those who don't know the card, real quick, I mean, I had the opening, I think, is one of the greatest openers of all time, being that it was Rey Mysterio versus Eddie Guerrero, two of my favorite wrestlers of all time. And it's a matchup that I've rewatched like to death. Charlie, you mentioned your mom is watching. Does she like wrestling? I would say so. I feel like she kind of has to now, because my brother and I grew up. Like I said, WrestleMania 21 was the first DVD I bought. So we were very much invested. And obviously, a parent wants to become invested in what their kids are watching. They want to make sure it's safe, of course, even though there were some things that maybe weren't. So she kind of has to. But I think certainly in the last year and a half, she's become much of a bigger fan. And that's always a treat for me, because it's a great opportunity to kind of bond over something. And I think it's very important too to recognize that pro wrestling's for everybody. It's not just for kids. It's not just for guys. It's for moms. It's for daughters. It's for cousins. It's for everybody. But to answer your question, yeah, I would say she's a fan. She tries to watch the shows as much as we do, but it's a lot of content out there. Safe. Laughing emoji. Absolutely. She tries to keep up with the shows, but it's a lot of content to keep up with. And being that it airs a little later, like I said, here in Arizona, it starts at 9:00. So it's kind of later for some people. But that's why I kind of take advantage of that and have the post-show reaction, talk about my feelings, share what I think about the show. Love to hear your guys' thought on the show. And that's why this has been, quite frankly, the most active and successful post-show reaction in terms of a live standpoint, I will say, since the inception of the channel. So again, I can't thank you guys enough for the activity here. But yeah, when it comes to safe, I feel like her and my mom, or her and my dad, kind of would peek in and make sure, like, hey, is everything okay? Like, just making sure what we're showing you here. And immediately when they would leave the room, something would happen. And that's not something I would tell them a lot, but it certainly allowed me the opportunity to develop a good sense of maturity when it came to the content that we were watching. I will say, though, I don't know if she's still watching. I will say, though, I was always very cautious when it came to my little brother. If I was watching it and it wasn't something that was appropriate for him, who was 3 years younger than me, best believe I did make sure he didn't watch it, I will say, for a time being, until he got old enough. And then, I mean, all bets were off. But it's really become a family affair for us. I talked about how in 2000 I became a fan. My dad would watch. See, now she's in the chat. My dad would watch WCW Nitro. I remember talking to him, and his favorite wrestler was the Ultimate Warrior. So keep in mind, that's late 80s, early 90s. So it runs that deep. I remember watching it with my grandfather. Again, this is around the time of 2000s, 2001, 2002, when SmackDown was newer and The Rock was on. He was my favorite growing up. He is someone that I really gravitated towards due to his confidence, his charisma. This guy was like a superstar, and it shows. He's now one of the biggest movie stars of all time. So it runs deep. Like I said, nearly 25 years as a fan. And I know some people are going to say, you were 2 years old. How do you remember? I remember. Muscle memory. But if my early memories, if I wanted to be honest, probably run as deep as 2002, 2003, during the SmackDown 6 era, where it was Eddie, Rey, Kurt Angle, Chavo, Edge, he who will not be named, even though we all know I'm talking about Chris. Those were the days. SmackDown always grew up as a fan of SmackDown. I was a SmackDown guy. I had nothing against Raw, but growing up we didn't have access to Raw until like I was like 7. They got old enough, and though they were thought they were the Hardy Boys, it didn't get any safer than that. This is true. This is true. My brother and I, we grew up big fans of the Hardys, Matt and Jeff. I, of course, was Matt. I was the older brother. Still am the older brother. He was Jeff Hardy because he was a little bit more rambunctious, a little bit more of a daredevil than I was. I played it safe. And we were big fans, still are big fans of the Hardy Boys, which, by the way, congrats to them for recently winning the tag team titles in Total Nonstop Action. But good times, fun times. There were times where maybe it was a little bit dangerous, playing in the backyard on the trampoline. And I remember my mom talking about later how, well, we wanted to build you guys a ring. I'm really happy they didn't. I'm really happy they didn't build a ring in the backyard, because that definitely would have resulted in some kind of visit to the hospital. Our insurance bills would have went up, dude. It's probably for the best. We had a trampoline, and I think that was good enough. We had our little mattresses and pillows in our bedrooms that we would wrestle on, so I think it worked out pretty well, if I do say so myself. We are now running on 61 minutes. Like I said, one of the more successful videos on the channel. Thank you guys for staying up this late with me, talking about professional wrestling, talking about Friday Night SmackDown, and just sharing my memories when it came to professional wrestling as a fan. As we bring this post-show reaction to a close, go ahead and like the video if you enjoyed this. Comment down below, whether it's in the chat or in the comment section, some of your favorite aspects of Friday Night SmackDown. What are some of your favorite memories in pro wrestling? And if you haven't already, make sure you give a rock bottom to the subscribe button to keep up to date with all the pro wrestling content that is covered here on the channel. Like I said, you can expect a video tomorrow morning at about 10 a.m. Arizona time, Mountain Standard Time. Of course, the J Area podcast is uploaded every Monday morning, and Monday night we will have another post-show reaction to Monday Night Raw. We'll see what kind of action they have in store for us, and what kind of, further developments we have in ongoing storylines, whether it's Seth Rollins, Gunther, the tag team division, the Bloodline, because Sami and Jay are there. We'll go ahead and we'll see you guys there. Again, can't thank you guys enough for participating in the live. Again, much love, appreciation, be safe, and be good people.